Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Friday Roundtable. I've got Coach Dub, I've got Jay Wells, and I've got Paul Wadlington here. And Paul, I think you wanted to start with just an announcement on how we're going to proceed for the remainder of the show.
We're going to proceed with the not indulging the fiction, the fan fiction, the coach fiction, the SID fiction that DJ Lagway is playing for Florida tomorrow.
So
if I have to have a big egg on my face on the post game, I'm happy to take it. But DJ Lagway ain't playing, y'all. Like, quit posting that DJ Lagway practiced. He practiced. He didn't practice.
So moving forward, I think it's safe to assume that we will have young Aiden Warren under center, who went 7 for 22 against Georgia, 1 interception. He also had 1 tackle, which is a direct result of his interception.
I had to log in just barely.
So Coach, going into this, and Ian has laid out this week about how he anticipates Florida's probably going to play us too high, make us make those intermediate passes. What do you want to see from the Texas offense this week against a Florida defense? Did I lose? Oh, did we lose Coach? Is he all frozen?
Oh, no.
He's frozen. Wow. Okay.
He's already angry.
LC, I don't know what you did.
I'm renowned for my hard-hitting questions.
Coach Dub is infuriated by the quality, tone, and tenor of this interview.
Yeah, I've never made Charlie mad before. This is the
No,
first.
Charlie's
Did you see the rage in his
Such
face?
a laid-back guy. All right. Well,
Paul
Paul,
was broken.
let's go a little X's and O's with you then, Paul. What do you want? And I know you've talked about this a little bit this week for the fine people that haven't seen. What are you expecting to see from the Texas, or rather, what do you want to see from the Texas offense this week?
Well, look, I want to see what we haven't seen in 3 weeks, which is a really comfortable Quinn Ewers commanding the offense, looking healthy, looking spry, looking mentally right, commanding the pocket. That's what we all want to see. And Florida is going to help us in that regard. They don't have great natural base pressure. They do have to blitz. I believe 17 different Gators have a sack on the season, at least one, but they only have 23 on the season. So they get their sacks by bringing unexpected packages, by bringing safeties, corners, nickels, linebackers. They don't have this dominant pass rusher up front. And so that should be good for the pocket. And then they're going to be down 2 starting cornerbacks. So Jason Marshall being the most notable of the 2 in terms of athleticism. So Florida is going to have to bring some pressure judiciously. Mostly they're going to have to play off coverage, Justin and LC. And I think that's going to create opportunities for Quinn Ewers underneath and in the intermediate game, which might be a nice way for him to get back his confidence.
Just talking football, we might as well go into my first deep stat of this week, and that is the average yards per play is actually pretty similar for these two teams. Now, I appreciate that is a little bit of a false stat because we're going to be having a completely different quarterback this game. But up until this point, I guess my question to you here is, Paul, is if we're sitting at 6.5 yards per play, I think the average fan would think that's pretty good. What makes an elite offense? What number should we be looking for there?
Well, we were 7 earlier in the year, and our offense the last 3 games has probably brought down that average a little bit. I think that so your average yards per play is mostly a measure of your explosives and also your ability to prevent negative plays, right? So anytime you have an average, if you add a -8 to your yardage,
sure,
that's not going to help you, right? So it really depends on the system and how you're trying to run your offense, how pass heavy, run heavy you are. Army is quite happy with 5.5 yards per play because they're running the ball, right? So you don't have to set this set thing of like 7 is elite. It depends on the structure of your offense, but we need to see that tipping back up and not headed down as it's been the last 3 weeks.
Justin, as we move through this, I really want to hear about the recruiting and what we could be looking for this weekend. But before we do that, let's hear from our friend Laura. I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call. We talked a little bit Wednesday, Justin, about how we are starting to wrap this class up a little bit, and there are some big fish out there. I think the 5-star flips is it's tantamount to the drama that everybody wants to see in anything. But what are you expecting to see? I'm going to ask you to think a little bit big picture now, moving toward the rest of the season. How do you see this class rounding out?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a top 5 class right now. And so with that being said, Texas, that's what Texas fans kind of need to get used to. Sark's going to always hover around that top 5 class era, around that rim. There's like 5 or 6 spots left, guys. And there's some 5-stars to be flipped in Michael Fasusi and Devin Sanchez, a handful of other targets. But there's also some more realistic ones that I think can still add to the average. Right now, they have one of the highest averages per commitment in the country. And that's 2 official visitors this weekend, Grayson Littleton out of Tampa and Kellen Wiley, a linebacker who's also out of Tampa area. Both those guys are squarely on the radar. Texas needs another corner. You want to go big picture, they need another corner in this class. You got to have somebody to join Caleb Chester. They added Zealous Hicks this week as he reclassified, as we had kind of alerted to a couple of months ago. He's part of the 2025 cycle now, so safeties are done. But they've got to add another corner. They want another linebacker. They're still trying to flip Riley Pettijohn, the McKinney 4-star committed to Ohio State. They're still trying to get Madden Ferry-Emo, the California linebacker. They're still trying to get him on campus. That's looking like that could happen in the next few weeks. And so Texas, they're trying to fill the holes at this point. They need another linebacker. They need 2 more defensive linemen, maybe even 3, and that'll kind of play itself out as we see. But right now, bigger picture, Texas just wants to stay in that top 5 range. And for them to do that, they need to add a corner. They need to add a couple more D linemen, probably another linebacker. And with Jonte Cook, I've had a couple questions about Jonte Cook, going to the portal. Would they look at another wide receiver? I don't believe so. I think they're pretty set on what they have now. And I think they would essentially have Michael Terry III, who is a 5-star, who is uncommitted, who Texas is in great position for. He'd probably take that last little receiver spot, so to speak, because he's going to be a kind of a multifaceted kid. That's how this class finishes. You want to finish in the top 3? Sign Michael Terry III, grab another corner, grab another linebacker, and get a couple of those defensive linemen from Georgia that I saw last week, because they grow them a little differently down there.
Well, and this is a question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Paul. One of the things that we've seen, at least, and maybe this is an element of being in the SEC, maybe it's the transfer portal, maybe it's NIL, but it seems to me, at least from a 30,000-foot view, that there is a lot of parity. These mid-level teams in the SEC, and even obviously the Vanderbilts of last year, they're making a run at people, and they're keeping games really close. They're making you earn every win on Saturday. What do you attribute that to?
Roster construction, making good choices, and it goes both ways. Look at what happened to Florida State. So people just assume you live by the mercenary, you can die by the mercenary as well if you make bad evals. And so Florida State, everyone just penciled them in the ACC title game before the season. And it's not quite working out that way in Tallahassee because they made bad choices. They've brought in a bunch of portal guys that aren't living up to their billing, or they actually just did a bad eval. We were giving Norvell the benefit of the doubt on DJ Ugale, like, wow, this guy sees something we don't. I thought this is a proven deal. And turns out we were right. And the coach had deceived himself. So it can go both ways. Vanderbilt's a great example of how you can improve yourself at quarterback, at offensive coordinator, which I think is a very underrated part of their development. Their tight end, Eli Stowers, who's going to probably be one of the best 2 or 3 tight ends in the SEC by the end of the year. He's back. He's back.
Yeah.
Man, he was so angry when he
straight out the womb.
Let's mine his brain now that he's calmed down after LC asked him a disrespectful question.
And again, I do apologize, sir. That was not my intent. Yeah, I was asking you about a potential too high defense that the offense is going to be facing this week, and I forgot that was pretty triggering for you. So please feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about, Coach. What are you looking for in this game? What gets you excited about this game?
another opportunity to go out and prove that they say is wrong. Everybody's talking, saying we can't run the ball. All right, let's go show them. They say we can't throw the ball deep. Let's show them. Like, it's like about pride at this point, right? You know what I mean? Like, we hear you. Now it's time to shut everybody up. That's how I feel. That's how I would approach it as a staff and if I'm a player. And you get an opportunity to do that against a pretty solid SEC defense. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. Let's show that we can run the ball other than just laterally. We can run right at you and run over you, and then we can take our deep shots when they're there. So, yeah.
One of the things that we were just discussing, Coach, is, and I'd love to hear you and Justin's thoughts on this, is you're neck deep in the recruiting world, but there seems also to be, as Paul pointed out, the main key here is that roster management, but there also seems to be a much more even distribution of talent, at least in my assessment of this. What are your thoughts on that, Justin?
Talent assessment, are you talking about on the 2025 class?
What I'm talking about is it seems like, and I know Coach made this comment the other day, like, they've all got Division I players. They're all good players. It's not like maybe we were in the Big 12 where it seemed to be dominant top heavy. It seems now that the players throughout the league, I mean, they're just good players all the way through. And that needs to be the expectation moving forward. Is that a fair assessment?
I think, I mean, from what we've seen so far in the SEC, that's a very accurate assessment. These guys, what we're seeing are the same level of athletes. We're just seeing so much, the numbers are so much more in the SEC than what we're used to seeing in the Big 12. Instead of playing a team that's got, 3 or 4, possibly 5 future NFL players, you're playing guys with 20, 25 guys that could potentially play on Sundays. And that's going to have some sort of effect. Like, I think we've learned as Texas fans that the SEC is a boxing match every Saturday, and it doesn't matter who or where you're playing. Florida's missing a dozen guys this week, but they're still going to come in there and throw hands because that's what they're used to doing over, since they've been in the SEC. I think Texas is starting to get used to that. Sark knew what was coming. I think that's why he built this roster the way he did. He knew he needed depth. And most of these guys have bought in. Most of the guys that are in the rotation have bought in, that know, hey, in one drop, I can be in this game. In one injury, I can be in this game. And so I think really just from a roster management standpoint, Sark understood we have to not only get more talented, but we have to do it from a depth standpoint. Texas always had the talent, but now you've got to match these guys. And look, Florida is missing a lot of guys, and they're not as good as they used to be. There are still NFL dudes lined up in Gainesville. They've got some really good defensive fronts that you've got to pay attention to. And so you can't take these guys for granted, even if it's a third string quarterback who was a walk-on former Ivy League star. You got to pay attention to all these guys. And so at the end of the day, Sark knew what he was doing when he built this roster. He understood the magnitude of having depth. It doesn't matter who's on the schedule. Ask any of these schools. I think Texas fans are kind of learning that this year, that, man, it really does not matter. Any Saturday in this league, you can get beat if you don't bring it all.
One thing that Drew said, and I think it was on Wednesday, and we were talking about the offensive line, Paul, and just the lack of push that we seem to be getting in the run game. And Drew attributed it to just the mental aspect of the players. They just need to have the want to do it, and he doesn't seem to think that's there. I'm curious if you agree with that sentiment, or is there something else? Is it schematic? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's an element of that. I think there's also the fact that we don't have a running play that we hang our hat on. So we try to be all things to all defenses. Typically, I mean, if you could pull that off, wow, like awesome. But at the college level, that's very difficult to push off. I mean, you're either going to be mostly a gap team or you're mostly going to be a zone team. And if you're mostly a zone team, you need to pick one of them. You need to be really good at inside zone or really good at outside zone and commit all of your resources to that. But the point is it's very difficult to excel at every aspect of the run game. And you got to have I got to have it run play. It's 3rd and 2, and we know we can run inside zone and get 3 yards.
Right.
And once you can do that and you have that confidence and you keep hammering and chipping away, the big runs will come, especially if the backs, frankly, you can block your backs better and you can run your blocking better. And one of the two needs to start happening for Texas. So either we need to create a bunch of line yards and the backs just run through a big gaping hole, or the backs need to start breaking a tackle at that second level at the 2-yard mark and turn that into a 21-yard gain instead of a 3-yard gain as they stumble forward. So something's got to give, but I would probably narrow down the playbook a little bit and find what is our run game staple? What are we going to rely upon and build out some of the play action game from, rather than trying to be all things to all running game. And I don't care what they pick. I'm partial to the counter tray with our personnel, the counter gaps. But whatever they pick, I hope they pick something and really start excelling at it, because that's what we need.
There's been a tremendous amount of coverage that a lot of the people on this screen have provided, and we want you to check us out. Please go to InsideTexas.com, use the promo code IT1, and you're going to get 2 months of our content for $1 American. I don't know if you guys are doing the math at home. That's going to get you pretty deep into the playoffs, guys. So that is a good amount of time the rest of this season. It's only going to cost you $1 American to get the insight that these guys are providing. We can only give you the best we can in this short window, but the level of depth that is going on the website at InsideTexas.com is fantastic, and we would love for you to join our community. When I was looking at this team, trying to do my breakdown, one thing I was looking at, obviously, is, and I like to dig into the stats a little bit. We talked a little bit already about the average yards per play. And what I noticed in this statistic, which Paul laid out why the statistic is maybe less important than some others, but there is some parity there. So I started to think to myself, where is there other parity? And a lot of people don't understand, maybe outside of the Southeast, but the University of Florida, just like the University of Texas, is considered one of those public school Ivies. It is a very good public institution, and they have developed 140 patents last year, which is pretty impressive. They ranked number 11th nationally. The University of Texas ranks 3rd, only behind MIT and I believe Berkeley. So that's pretty impressive. Now, you may be wondering, Texas gets 235 patents last year. Florida only gets 140. Why did Florida win this? Well, none of the University of Texas's patents, frankly, mix well with vodka, and Gatorade Frost does. So Florida gets the edge here. And lastly, this is my favorite statistic, is the admission rate. This is a first. I wasn't here for you guys for that Vanderbilt game, but Florida right now, admission rate is 23.3%. Texas is 31.4%, which again means that Texas is serving its community better than the University of Florida. All right, guys, let's get into our picks for this game. Well, we're going to start with you, Coach. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, initial thoughts, and then go ahead and give us that game score.
Yeah, so I got Texas 31-16. I gave Florida 16. I feel like they're going to have to go for 2. Thinking they can probably get back in the game late. They get a cheap score and go for 2. But I think the game is over early. Texas scores over 30 points again. And I think we control the clock. Kind of like we did against Vanderbilt. We played their game and beat them at their game. And then they try to score at the end there and go for 2. Try to make the score look better, thinking they can get back in it late. But that's my prediction there.
Justin, we'll go to you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of along with Coach a little bit there. I really want to, Gunnar Helm said something pretty stark this week. He's like, we need to get a confidence back in our quarterback. It's a nice sentiment, but I don't really want to hear that publicly. Sure. I want to know that the guy is locked and loaded and ready to go. And so which Quinn we see this week, I think, is going to be telling in this. I've got Texas winning 27-13. I don't think Florida can do much more than field goals at this point. I think they'll move the ball a little bit, but Texas defense is really good, and they're really good at home. Like I think they do rally around the fans in that regard. This is a defensive team. The program is built around this, and I think that's what's actually getting better. They're going to be able to score just because I do think they're going to lean on the run more. I do think they're going to have to establish some sort of run game because you've got to keep these defenses honest, and not one of them is going to play honest until you can prove you can run the ball. And they don't need – I don't blame them for that fact. But I think we're going to – I actually in one of our roundtable stories that I'll post at Inside Texas, I've got Jarrett Gibson getting a score in this game. I think he's going to be a key. I think he's a guy that Texas fans want to kind of see a little bit more of. We saw him earlier in the season, and the dude is some true north running style now. He doesn't know any other direction. And so I got the Horns in a close one, 27-13. This score indicates, 14-point game, but I actually don't think it's going to be this close on the field. But until I see Quinn Ewers kind of go back, revert to what we had seen earlier in the year, I think they're still at 27.
Paul, what are your thoughts?
I think I've got it at 34-10. I'm not sure the Texas offense is going to provide all that. I think the Texas defense is going to set us up with some short fields.
Yeah,
I think we're going to turn the Gators over. And I think Florida is going to have trouble scoring unless we hand them, as we have the past couple of games, unless we hand them the ball at our 30-yard line over and over. I don't think we're going to do that, knock on wood. Ultimately, I just think it's going to be a pretty workmanlike victory over a Gator team that, frankly, has been kind of bitten by the injury bug, and they're not going to be able to put their best foot forward.
I also like the defense in this game. The University of Texas and the University of Florida have met 3 times. The University of Florida has never scored more than 7 points in any of those meetings, and I'm going to hold to that tradition moving forward. I think that Justin is right in this instance. This is going to be a defensive game for us. I do hope we see some offense out of this game, but a little bit weary. I think we're a little bit of the got a little abused wife syndrome a little bit, right? We don't know what is going to happen here. We still love everything about it, but we're just so worried it's gonna happen. So please join us throughout this week. Tonight we're going to have Inside the Program probably launching here within the next 1 or 2 hours. We will have our pregame 1 hour before the snap. The second the clock hits 0, we are going to be in our postgame show, and then I will be with you guys on Sunday for the day after. We want to thank Coach for being here. We really appreciate you stepping in for young Ian Boyd, who had to move his brother-in-law today.
Did we get a Coach Dub prediction?
Yeah, we did. He opened up for us.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Maybe I should actually pay attention rather than read the chat.
It's okay. It is a phenomenally delightful chat, and we appreciate everyone who's participated in it. Join us at InsideTexas.com. Again, that is IT1 for 2 months for $1 American. Have a good weekend, guys.